Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this. We're excited to have you listen to the Build Your Success podcast. Here at the Build Your Success podcast, we like to build you so you can build others. We do that through our coaching, training, and speaking events, but we also do that through the special guests that we bring to this podcast. I'm excited today to have Michael Mariner. Michael is a motivational speaker. He's an author and a success coach. He uses his personal experiences and his ability to overcome adversity to motivate, inspire, and empower others to embrace the changes necessary that create momentum for success. So, welcome to the podcast today, Michael. It's great to have you.
Hey, good morning, Brian. It's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Well, this is like episode 136, so somewhere in the 130s. And I only have a handful of guests that return repeat guests. And here you are, a repeat guest. So welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. I feel honored, man.
Oh,
I
that's
really
great.
do.
I'm going to ask you the question. You probably didn't get asked this last time because we weren't asking this question at the time. We've got a signature question now we ask all of our guests. What does leadership and being a leader mean to Michael Mariner?
Leadership for me is just being someone that impacts change, influence change, by empowering others to also do the same thing in a positive manner, to where it's done through influence and not control. That's my thing in leadership, buddy.
So that influence and not control. Give us an example. Maybe it's something you've experienced where someone tried to control you through leadership as opposed to influence. I'd love to hear that.
Well, being a person that wears many hats and different forms of leadership, when you're working with different individuals, everybody have different personalities, and so when you're learning from different people and different personalities, I had this one incident where I was working for one of the largest insurance companies in the nation, and we had this guy that came down from California that took the office over because we wasn't performing well as an office in the area. And so they brought him down. Of course, he was from a different country, actually. And so basically what would happen, I was actually in management at the time. And so I had a number of agents that was up under me in the insurance business. And so he had a way of ruffling some feathers, man. And he was straight, blunt, to the point. And he didn't care how it came out, when it came out, what came out. And he just going to get his point across. And so basically I had to learn how to, as they say, chew the meat and spit out the bones. And so basically what I would do, we would have a sales meeting every Friday. And so I would actually have to have another meeting to defrag my guys after that meeting, because he would be upset the whole office. And so what I would tell the guys is this: I say, listen, I said, what he said is actually correct. Hey, we need to do better. We can do better, and we need to figure out why we're not doing better. But at the same time, the approach probably could have been a little bit different. So let's listen to the message behind what he said and not the way that he said it. And so that's like coming in a motivational form to where, you don't want to force anybody to do something. You want them to be able to want to do something for you because you impact them in a positive way and not because they're making you do something.
Michael, that's great. I love that analogy about chew the meat and spit out the bones. That's a great way to look at things when you're going through adversity with someone that doesn't have great leadership skills. I, like you, have had leaders in the past that I have learned what to do, and other things I've learned not to do. Some people are extremely brilliant, very qualified and competent, but their people skills are lacking.
Right.
And so that's the reason I called this podcast to Build Your Success. I want to build people up because in my early career, they talked about I tore him up one side and down the other.
Right.
And it's like, who wants to work with someone that's going to tear you down? I mean, that's not the idea in our business, but it's just great to hear that you encourage people to chew the meat and spit out the bone. That's a great analogy for the listeners to take that away and understand there's good in everything. If you can find that and use it and those resources, that's amazing.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk about the name of your business is Shift Motivations. Why'd you choose to name your business this? I think I know because we've talked a couple of times, but I want the listeners to hear it from you.
Shift Motivations derived from basically the story of my life. When I wrote my first book, knowing, certain business principles, It was new to me. So, but I did know that, hey, you have to have a platform to build from to, for the people to be able to find you. And so when I sat down, I'm like, well, who is Mike? What's Mike's life about? Resiliency, being able to bounce back from adversity. And when I look at all of that, as I was visiting clients with the same insurance company that I was working for, and I was going from one appointment to the next. And being a man of faith, I'm always meditating and praying, and asking for answers and stuff like that as well. And so as I was riding to my next appointment, the word shift motivations popped in my head. And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, that's it. That's it. Because when you're talking about creating momentum for change, that means you have to shift. There's a difference between quitting and shifting. Quitting means you stop completely and you go in a complete different direction, right? Shifting means you can be going in the same direction. You just may have to slow down or speed up depending upon what you're trying to do. And so when I look at the back end of my life, I've always had to shift out of adversity. There are terrible things that I've, like the housing market the housing market in 2007 and 8. My family was impacted by that. The hurricanes back in 2004, that was kind of like the first of different things that I had to overcome, and to where I didn't have time to cry because I had a family to take care of, and I had to figure out how we was going to get our life back together. And so, going through economic declines and just different things, relationship declines, ups and downs, trying to, build business and going through the adversity and trying to build relationships and connect with the right people. All those ups and downs created a lot of adversity. And I had to learn how to shift in between that and still keep my momentum and towards my goal. And so that's where shift motivations came from.
That's wonderful. I love the fact you talk about shifting, downshifting, if you will, to a lower gear, or upshifting to a faster gear, depending on the circumstances of situations. If you're doing something that's incorrect, don't go faster and do more of it.
Right.
Right. So I think it's great, the analogy that you use to shift. Hey, there's that granny low speed sometimes we need for climbing hills or getting through bogs. But then there's also, you need to be in fifth gear if you're racing or doing those type of things.
Right.
I love that. It's a great analogy. It's always great to make people understand something through a visual, and that's a great visual to understand about shifting. And it's so important. I love that, not stopping. Let's go on. Let's go forward.
Right.
Any kind of forward momentum is going to be good for us. But recognize there are different gears to be in at different times, different seasons in life. That's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have a passion for helping others to get where they desire. What are some tools and techniques you use to help others achieve what they want to achieve?
I love training, man. And one of the things I like to use is I like to use all the adversity things up front. I'm kind of like a forerunner. So it's like, we know what the destination is. Let's figure out what are the things that keeps you from getting to where you want to go. So I like to attack the mind first, because you can always come up with a strategy. Anybody can come up with a strategy. There's all kinds of strategies to get there, but let's go ahead, because we know that obstacles are going to rise. That's a fact. That's a given. So I like to start there. Let's go ahead and lay out the foundation. What are the things that you're dealing with? Okay, why haven't you started that business? Why haven't you done the research in the area where you're living? Or is it fear? Is it fear of failing? Is it fear of success? Is it well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck and I don't have the means to do that. So let's attack those things, because what happens is we're going to create some momentum that way. When it shows up in a different area of your life, you'll be able to overcome that because you recognize it in a former area of your life. And so that's why I'm big on principles. I love strategies. We create strategies, but when you really look at it, your strategy is based upon the principle that you live by. And so if we can determine what your principles are, what you stand for, then we can actually kind of build that blueprint to kind of help you get to where you want to be, because there are going to be some potholes in the road. So we just want to make sure you don't stop, but you make that shift.
That's great. Principles are very important to you. I read, something you wrote about principles. So tell the listeners why principles are important to you and why they should be to us as individuals.
It really defines you as an individual. It defines who you are. It defines what you stand for. It defines what you're not going to put up with. And that's why it's important, because when things come into your space that you don't want to put up with, then that's that red flag that goes off, like, hey, principal alert, principal alert. So that's not one of my principles. So I shouldn't have a problem disassociate myself with that. And so once I learned that, and it doesn't say that it's going to make it easier, but it makes it necessary. It makes it necessary, because we get attached to people and we get attached to things, but when we trying to get to a certain place, sometimes we can't take those people and things where we're going. And so that's why it has to be very important that you have to have principles and standards in your life, because they help guide you in the right direction that you said that you want to go, but it's going to be based off the principles that you set for your life. So that's why I feel that it's very important that you have to have those standards and principles in your life and use those as tools to get to where you're going, because no matter what level you're on and what level you're trying to get to, it's your principle that's going to keep you sane. That's the way I feel about it.
Wow, Michael, great insights. Thinking about being known as a principled person
Yeah.
makes me think of character and having character.
Hmm.
I like to talk about having character over charisma. Hey, it's great to have charisma. It's great to be a charismatic person and be
Hmm.
thriving and motivation and all those things. But you better have those principled character items to back that up and show people that you are a person that has these uh, principles. And my principles
Hmm.
will be different than yours, and yours will be different than mine. But as long as people recognize we stand for our own principles, I
Right.
think they're going to respect us.
Exactly. Exactly. Because you can't earn respect when you, as the young people say, you're not keeping it 100. Because even when whether you're leading a Fortune 500 company or whether you're leading your own family, you have to set those values and principles, because those values and principles are going to be accepted by other people. And so it's not about being perfect, but it's about being transparent about who you are and where you are. So that way, when problems arise in the office, or things like that, then your people will feel comfortable to come and talk to you about personal issues. Because let's face it, you spend more time at work than you do with your own family. And so why do I want to spend more time being stressful, you know, in a place that keeps me stressed out? And so that's why leadership, and I'm glad that you do that, man, with the build up broadcast, because it's very important that we build people up, because like I said, we're not perfect, but we want to try to create as much of an environment for growth as possible.
Yeah, that striving for excellence is better than trying to get to perfection, because we can't get there. We
Hmm.
can't get to perfection, but we
Hmm.
can be excellent in what we do,
Yeah.
always thriving, always working to do better,
Hmm.
competing with ourselves, not competing with everybody. The worst problem I have is the guy in the mirror. And I need to
Right.
help, I need to focus on that before I'm focusing on others as far as that goes. So definitely want to encourage people to grow and develop themselves and reach out to others and get this network you talk about. Let's dive into your book now. Your newest book is the title The Blueprint to Success. And it's for students, but I like your analogy about the students. So tell the listeners what students means to you as the author.
Yeah, yes, sir. Gladly. Students is actually twofold, right? And it is for the academic student. So you got your middle school, your high school, your collegiate students, but it is also for the forever learning student, such as yourself and myself. And I like to use analogy because I like to work out. I plan on being around for a while, so I want to try to stay somewhat fit. And so I use that analogy as you never work out one body part. You may specify one body part, but you're never working out one body part. So, for example, like Mondays we call International Chest Day, because everybody works out on their chest on Monday, and majority of the people. So, but when you're working out your chest, you're also working out what you call your triceps. And so we adopted this thing, when I was in high school, we would do what we call chest tries, back bis, and then you do your legs and your shoulders. So when I'm working my chest, I'm also working my tricep muscle, which would actually consider to be a secondary muscle. So that's where I actually get that analogy from, because it's twofold. It is for the academic student, but it's for the forever learning student, such as yourself and myself, for people that want to better themselves, that are always trying to come up with ways on how to better themselves each day that they wake up.
That's great. So now that we define what students are, because it's everyone at this point, it's it's
Yes.
the it's the high school student, the academia, and then thus those that want to continue learning. What's disappointing is that most people don't read a book after they leave their education.
Mm-hmm.
And we want people to recognize that leaders are readers, and we got to get these books
Mm-hmm.
and success ideas and
Mm-hmm.
learn from others to cultivate what we want to become.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we know what the title is and who it's for, what can we find in this book, Michael?
I took a different approach to this one, Brian. I didn't create chapters in this book, and it was on purpose. I created sections, basically, and I could have created topics and subtopics, but basically I had a conversation with myself, like, because if you can explain something to a kid, you can explain something to anybody. And so I was like, I use that analogy that, okay, if I had to teach a young person, what are just 3 primary principles that it take to be successful in life, no matter what you do, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or working your way up the corporate ladder, what would I say? And so what came to me was these 3 things is it takes the right mindset to be successful in life, and it takes you being able to build the right relationships and also doing the right activities. So I'm a big sports fanatic, and so if you ever been injured, whether through sports or just had an injury, sometimes the doctor may require you to take an MRI, right? And so I created this terminology called MRA, mindset, relationships, and activity, because success is an inside job. And so you can't see that fracture or that issue without going through that machine, that gives you the MRI. And so it is with success. So no matter whether you say dedication, opportunity, being on time, you can take any character or characteristic, what you think success is, and you can place it up under any one of those situations. You can place it up under mindset, relationships, or activity. So no matter what characteristic you say that is needed to be successful, I guarantee you can put it up on one of those umbrellas. So that's what that book is about. It's about developing the right mindset for success, doing the right activities, and building the right relationships so that you can have sustainable success no matter where you are in your life.
Sounds like a great blueprint for success of those three elements. We don't have time to go over all 3 elements on the podcast today, but I would like to, so it's very important. The mindset's very important. Mm-hmm. The relationships, man, I'm a relationships guy. Mm-hmm. I've made a ton of relationships just with this podcast alone. But I think I want to get the listeners to focus in on activities, because I think sometimes the biggest piece that's missing is action. Mm-hmm. And when you say activities, I think action. It's doing. Right. I think you said it earlier, we can have all these great ideas and ambitions, but until we put the rubber to the road in this action and we shift. Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about these activities. What activities do you encourage in the book and when you're coaching others?
Well, I encourage you got to have a map first. Like I'm going to Atlanta to a men's conference at the end of this month, right? And so I live in Florida. So my destination is Atlanta. So the first thing I have to do is fill out a map and figure out what route I'm going to take to get to Atlanta, right? But then I also have to prep for if I'm going to make, a stop to the gas station, stop to get something to eat, or if it was a longer, trip, or, you may not be one of those individuals that ride all the way through, but you may want to stop and get some rest or something. So all of those factors, factor into your trip. And so basically what we have to do is we have to make sure we factor in those things. We have to look at the end goal and then work backwards. So if I say I want to write a book, okay, well, what does it take to write a book? What is my title? What am I going to say? Who's my audience, right? And so I have to do the work to figure out first what's the first thing I have to do, which is what? Write a manuscript. And so a lot of times I've talked with people and I coach them and they like, man, I don't know where to start. And I just start. Because at the end of the day, if you're still trying to figure out how to start, you're going to be like that squirrel that's trying to cross the road and then mess around and get hit by a car. Crazy analogy, but we see it all the time. And you be like, go ahead and go. I'm trying to stop. I don't want to hit you, and then sometimes, unfortunately, that squirrel don't make it across the road because he was indecisive, because basically he was like a deer caught in the headlights. So you don't want to be that person, just start where you are. And so that's a firm thing that you have to drive yourself into when it comes to activity, right? Because you don't want to do the wrong activity. I'm going to Atlanta. That's, we're looking at what, a 7-8 hour drive, right? If you go on by road. And so I have to prepare for that. I prepare for that differently than if it was just, me going to Orlando, which is a 45-minute drive, And so it's those activities that we set in motion that's going to get us where we are. I can't say I want to be an NBA player, but I never picked up a basketball. So we have to determine what those right activities are, because the right questions will require the right answers. And the key word is that right, because I can ask you any question and then you're going to give me an answer. But if I ask you the right question, then that should direct you to give me the right answer to whatever it is that I need.
That's great, Michael. You know, our generation has a ton less excuses than
Hmm.
previous generations have. We have these smartphones
Yep.
that you can create your outline of your book in your notepad on your phone.
Hmm.
You can research things. You can reach out to people. You can
Hmm.
speak with someone across the world in a Zoom call.
Hmm.
So don't limit yourself and say you can't do something that you've been striving to do. Hey, I barely graduated high school and English was my worst subject, and now I'm been authored in 3 books. So
Right.
don't limit yourself by those things. So I just appreciate that encouragement for the activity and action and get started where you're at. Great advice for our listeners today. Well, it's that time of the show. We got to wrap things up. I'm going to bring up, for those that are watching on YouTube, I'm bringing up your website at shiftmotivations.com. For those listening, we'll include that in the show notes. But what can the listeners find at your website?
But when they go to my website, they'll find out about Michael. Who's Michael? Who's this guy? I got a mantra. I call myself the shift motivator. Impacting change, empowering change to create momentum for success. That's what it's all about. That's what you're going to find. You're going to find. You're going to see that I have mentors. You're going to see, where I've been, who I've impacted. There's event pictures and pictures of students and adults, and I impact from generation to generation. I don't limit myself, and that's why I'm the shift motivator, because I can shift from any audience, and I never really, stuck myself with one particular audience, but because I work with both youth and I work with both adults as well, and it just has worked well for me. Everybody can't do that, everybody can't say that, and I don't say that boastfully, but that's why I say it's important to gather those principles and know who you are, so that way people can't steer you to where they want you to go and not where you want to go. So you'll find all of that, and I also have some apparel. I have apparel line called Motivated Apparel, and there are graphic tees that have great motivational quotes. That I had a graphic designer put some awesome designs too. The people love them, and I'm blessed to have impact in that area. And then you kind of have kind of keep a route of where I'm at and what I'm doing, and got my motivational videos, so it's linked to all my YouTube videos and things of that nature. So you can go and watch me on YouTube and get your morning motivation on. I got information concerning the book as well. And also, I do have a mixtape that I created with the book as well, Brian.
All right. Got a lot going on there. So I would
Yeah.
encourage our listeners to go over to that motivations.com, see what Michael has to offer. See the details for ordering the book there, and join in with Michael, what he's doing. I'd also encourage you to visit our website, buildcs.net. You can see the things we offer as far as coaching, training, and speaking, and our latest book, Voices for Leadership. And you can see these 40 authors we put together. You can also join our VFL community at vflcommunity.com. We'd encourage you to do that. It's where we bring our authors together. We interview them on a live call, and you, as a member, can ask them questions. Have you ever read a book and wanted to ask the author questions? We've created that community for you. So give that a try. Listen, do me a favor, share this podcast with others. Go over to whatever platform you're listening to it on and give us an honest rating and review. We'd appreciate that. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. Remember to build yourself and then build others.